A neurologist with more than 40 years of experience told me something that changed my life. His name is Dr. Julian Aranda. He has given lectures at universities all over the world, has worked with more than 10,000 older patients, and is considered one of the leading experts on cognitive aging in Latin America. I met him during a talk at a small conference in Bogota almost a year ago. He didn't speak in technical jargon or complicated words. He spoke calmly, as if each sentence could awaken something inside you. And I remember perfectly what he said that afternoon. Most people don't lose their mind because of age. They lose it because they never learned to activate it. That sentence stuck with me. At the end of his talk, I approached him and asked a simple question. "Doctor, if you had to give me only one piece of advice to keep my mind awake, what would it be?" He looked at me, smiled, and said, "Do this every day for a month. Not only will you feel more lucid, you will also see the world more clearly." He explained a technique that seemed too simple to be real, but I tried it, and it worked. In fact, it not only worked, it made me feel more awake than ever, even at 81 years old. Today I'm going to tell you exactly what he told me, why it works according to science, and how you can apply it yourself. It doesn't matter if you are 60, 70, or 90 years old. Your brain can be reactivated. It only needs the right stimulus at the right time with the right intention. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear may change the way you use your mind, your memory, and your life. And before we continue, I'd like to get to know you a little better. How old are you and where are you watching this from? Leave it in the comments. I'm interested to know whether your mind is already awake or whether we're about to wake it up together. Starting at around 60 years of age, something begins to change inside our head, although we don't always notice it right away. The brain, that silent organ that for decades has processed every thought, every emotion, every decision, starts to become slower. It doesn't shut down, but it does enter a kind of gradual pause. The connections between neurons, which used to be quick and fluid like a highway on a clear day, now slow down, as if traffic were beginning to build up little by little. This loss of speed has an explanation. With age, we naturally begin to lose neurons. And not only that, the connections between them, what we call synapses, also weaken. It's as if the internal communication cables started to rust. In addition, the production of dopamine decreases, an essential chemical that not only regulates mood, but also motivation, learning, and concentration. That's why many older people feel more distracted, more apathetic, or even sadder, without really knowing why. And then there's short-term memory, the kind that helps you remember where you left your keys or what you were going to get in the kitchen. That's one of the first to be affected. Not because the brain refuses to remember, but because it no longer has the same efficiency for filing information. But here's what matters. Although all of this happens naturally, it doesn't mean it's inevitable or irreversible. The brain, unlike other organs, has a wonderful capacity. It can adapt, regenerate, and strengthen, even at 80 or 90 years old. How? By activating it. Just as a muscle that goes unused for weeks atrophies, the brain also weakens when we don't stimulate it. But if we challenge it, if we move it, if we make it work, then it responds, it lights up, it reconfigures itself. In fact, the most recent studies in neuroscience show that the human mind can generate new neural connections at any age. This is called neuroplasticity. It's the brain's ability to change and adapt to new experiences, new learning, new habits. What's most surprising is that you don't need to do extraordinary things. Sometimes, small daily challenges are enough. Learning a new word, reading out loud, memorizing a song, changing the order of your routines, writing with your other hand. Each small change is a spark, and those sparks can awaken entire regions of the brain that were, literally, asleep. So no, it isn't age that turns off your mind. It's inactivity. It's the habit of always doing the same thing. It's abandoning curiosity, play, and learning. Your brain doesn't need miracle pills. It needs you to treat it like a valuable muscle, because it is. And if you let it sleep for too long, one day you'll wake up and won't know how to turn it back on. Dr. Julian Aranda has worked with older people for more than 4 decades. He has visited hospitals, rehabilitation centers, private clinics, nursing homes, even private houses where his patients could no longer move. But among so many faces, so many cases, so many medical histories, he began to notice something that didn't appear in the books or the statistics. Some of his patients, even at 80 or 90 years old, remained completely lucid. They remembered names, dates, entire stories. They continued making important decisions. Some wrote, others drew, others learned languages, and they were not necessarily the healthiest physically. Some had mobility problems or chronic illnesses, but their mind remained awake, lucid, alive. In contrast, other patients, even younger ones, showed signs of severe mental deterioration. They became disoriented easily. They forgot recent conversations. They had trouble concentrating even for a few minutes. Dr. Aranda decided to observe more closely, to study the habits of those who seemed to have a mind that defied time. He interviewed more than 200 patients over 75 years old, reviewed their routines, what they ate, how they slept, what they did during the day. He was searching for an answer, and he found it. In one of his lectures, he said something that stuck with me. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. Because many of us believe that reading, walking, or doing crosswords is enough. But it isn't. Not if you do it without intention. Not if you do it on autopilot. The secret isn't in the activity itself, but in the way your mind engages while you do it. The doctor identified 3 specific practices that, when combined, managed to activate memory, focus, and creativity at the same time. Not separately, not at different moments, but simultaneously, as if you turned on several lights at once in different rooms of the same house. The first practice is related to conscious movement. It's not enough to walk or move. You need to do it while also training attention and coordination. The second practice has to do with focused mental challenges. Those moments when you truly concentrate all your energy on solving, thinking, remembering, without distractions. And the third practice involves stimulating several senses at once: sight, hearing, touch, even smell and taste. Because when we use multiple senses at the same time, the brain reacts as if it were in a state of positive alert. It wakes up. It lights up. These 3 practices, done daily, not only prevent mental decline, they can also improve cognitive functions, reinforce memory, increase thinking speed, and restore the clarity many believe is lost forever. Of course, this isn't about miracles. It's about practical neuroscience and the willingness to incorporate small daily changes that create an enormous impact over time. When Dr. Aranda told me about the first pillar for waking up the brain, I was surprised by how simple it seemed. He told me, move every day, but not the way you've always done it. Do it with intention. Do it with awareness. And then he added something I didn't fully understand at the time. Walking isn't enough. What activates your mind is how you walk. For years, like many others, I thought going out for a few minutes walk every day was enough to keep me active. And yes, walking helps your heart, your joints, your circulation. But that isn't enough for the brain. The brain needs to be challenged while the body moves. The doctor explained that when you walk and at the same time count backwards by 5s, or try to remember people's names, or change the route you use every day, you're forcing your brain to take part. You're no longer walking on autopilot. You're creating new connections. And those connections are not just anything. They activate areas of the brain that usually remain asleep in daily routine. The frontal lobes, in charge of reasoning and planning, and the motor centers, which coordinate physical movement, begin to work together like a tuned orchestra. And when that happens, the mind sharpens. I decided to try it. The next day, instead of walking on the same sidewalk as always, I crossed to the opposite side. I quietly said the days of the week in reverse order while breathing deeply. Tuesday, Monday, Sunday. Then I changed. I thought of my grandchildren's names in alphabetical order. At first it was a bit clumsy. I made mistakes. I got frustrated. But on the 3rd day, something curious happened. I felt more awake. Not only while I walked, but afterwards as well. I started to remember better what I had read, to connect ideas faster, to feel more present. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it was as if the mental fog I sometimes had in the morning cleared a little more each day. The doctor was right. The brain needs to move with the body, but not just any way. The key is intentional coordination. Here are some simple exercises you can try. Walk while counting backward from 100 in steps of 7. Breathe deeply and coordinate your steps with each inhale and exhale. For example, 4 steps as you inhale, 4 steps as you exhale. Change your usual route. Do it on purpose. Look around and describe out loud what you see. If you're at home, walk in circles while you try to recite the months of the year in reverse order. What's important is that your mind participates in the movement. Because when the body moves and the brain thinks, a spark is generated. And that spark, over time, can light up parts of you that you thought were turned off. Remember this. Walking without thinking is like talking without listening. It's movement without intention. And intention is what turns the mind on. The second thing Dr. Aranda taught me was this. Your mind doesn't need entertainment, it needs challenges and focus. For years, I believed that keeping the brain active was as easy as doing crosswords at the dining table with the television on in the background, or playing a Sudoku on the phone while talking to someone, or reading a bit before bed with the radio on. But he looked at me seriously and said something I won't forget. If your attention is divided, your mind isn't training. It's just surviving. And he was right. The brain doesn't improve when it does familiar things superficially. True stimulation occurs when we force it to focus completely, without distractions, without noise, without interruptions. Only you, the task, and the present moment. That kind of focus not only improves concentration, it also promotes what scientists call neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons. Yes, even at 70, 80 or 90 years old, your brain can create new cells, but only if you challenge it enough. And what kind of challenges help? It's not about complicated things. It's about activities that force you to think, remember, reason, and organize ideas. Here are some simple but powerful examples. Learn new words every day. Write them down, repeat them out loud, use them in sentences. Read out loud for 5 minutes a day. This activates comprehension, auditory memory, and articulation. Solve simple problems with pencil and paper. Additions, subtractions, small puzzles, mental calculations. Write your memories. Force the brain to reconstruct scenes from the past, names, places. Tell stories in your own words, to your children, your grandchildren, or even record yourself telling them. The doctor told me the story of one of his patients, Mrs. Clara. She was 78 years old and had long struggled to remember what she had done the day before. It was hard for her to follow long conversations, and sometimes she even forgot common words. But one day, in a session, she told the doctor that when she was young, she used to write poetry. Small verses, simple lines. The doctor encouraged her to take it up again, and she did. Every morning, after breakfast, she sat with a notebook and wrote a poem, sometimes only 4 lines, sometimes a single sentence. But she did it with attention, searching for words, recalling emotions, connecting ideas. After 3 weeks, her daughter told her she seemed different, sharper, more present. She was once again remembering things from the day before. She laughed more. Her face looked more awake. It wasn't magic. It was focus. It was mental work with intention. And you can do it too. You don't need to be a poet. You only need to do one thing at a time, with your whole mind present. Put your phone aside, turn off the television, silence the world for a few minutes, and give your brain what it needs most. A real challenge, and your full attention. There's a way to wake up your brain that very few consider. It isn't doing mental exercises. It isn't walking more. It's something deeper and more enjoyable. Dr. Aranda calls it the 3rd pillar of mental awakening, multisensory stimulation. His explanation was simple. When you involve several senses at the same time, the brain lights up like a city at night. And it makes sense. Most of our daily activities are done on autopilot, using one or two senses, and almost without thinking. We look, but we don't observe. We hear, but we don't listen attentively. We touch, but without feeling. But when we combine sight, hearing, touch, and thought, the brain cannot fall asleep. It must stay alert. And that state of positive alert is what strengthens neural connections. Here are some simple and powerful examples. Play an instrument. You don't need to be a musician. When you shake a maraca, pluck a string, or keep the rhythm with a flute, you're using hearing, coordination, memory, and touch at the same time. Paint or draw. It doesn't matter if you think you can't. What matters is that you observe, mix colors, make fine movements with your hands, and concentrate. Cook attentively. Feel the textures, smell the spices, cut with precision, remember a recipe, taste the flavors. Cooking, when done with presence, is one of the most complete experiences for the brain. Crafts. Knitting, carving, cutting, assembling figures. Anything that involves using your hands carefully and thinking through each step activates multiple brain areas. Listen to music with your eyes closed while imagining scenes. This combination of hearing, visual imagination, and emotion has an incredible effect on the cerebral cortex. The doctor told me the story of Vincent, a man of 83 who had worked his whole life as a mechanic. When he retired, his wife noticed that he began to get distracted easily and had mood changes. He slept badly. He forgot simple things. During a conversation, Vincent mentioned that, when he was young, he had played the guitar with some friends, but hadn't done so for decades. The doctor asked him to try taking it up again. Vincent hesitated, but a week later, he found his old guitar stored in a closet. It was full of dust, but intact. He started playing again. At first, just a few chords, then short songs. The following month, not only was he happier and more awake, but he began to have something he hadn't had in a long time: vivid dreams. One morning he told the doctor, "Since I started playing the guitar again, I dream more clearly." The explanation? Playing an instrument not only stimulates the senses, it also reactivates memories, emotions, imagination, and that even shows up in your rest. The brain loves varied stimuli. It likes to be surprised. It likes to be taken out of sensory routine. Because when you use multiple senses at once, synapses strengthen, neurons communicate more, and that communication creates new pathways, new possibilities. So if you want to keep your mind alive, don't just think more. Feel more, listen more, touch more, create more, and do it with intention. Because there's no age limit for reawakening the senses, and with them, reawakening your mind. Dr. Aranda told me a sentence that I didn't fully understand until I experienced it firsthand. The moment you wake up defines how your brain will function for the rest of the day. And he was right. Recent studies in neuroscience have shown that during the first 2 hours after waking, the brain enters what they call the alpha state, a phase of openness, receptivity, and mental reorganization. In that state, the mind is more moldable. It's like freshly watered soil, ready for planting, but also vulnerable, because the first thing you put in it will grow. And what do most people do upon waking? They check their phone. News, messages, social networks, notifications. They enter a state of alert, stress, comparison, noise. And without realizing it, they're conditioning their brain to function reactively and in a scattered way all day. The doctor explained it clearly. If the first thing you do upon waking is pay attention to the outside world, you're abandoning your inner world. I set out to do something different. I left my phone far from the bed, and I designed, with the doctor's help, a routine of just 10 minutes. 10 minutes for me, for my mind, for my well-being. And I want to share it with you because it truly marked a before and after. First minute. Cold water. As soon as you get up, wash your face with cold water, or if you can, shower. Cold water activates the nervous system, wakes up circulation, and breaks the mental fog of sleep. It's a clear signal to the brain. The day has begun. 2nd and 3rd minutes, conscious stretching. Stretch your arms, your neck, your back. Move your shoulders. Do it slowly, breathing deeply. Feel your body. Be grateful to be alive. Gentle movement activates the body without forcing it. 4th to 6th minutes, positive visualization. With your eyes closed, imagine how you want to feel that day. Not what you're going to do, but how you want to feel. Calm, strong, grateful, joyful. Visualize your mind clear. This trains the emotional system in your favor. 7th to 10th minutes, reading out loud. Take a paragraph, a poem, a page of something that inspires you. Read it out loud. This stimulates comprehension, voice, memory, and hearing at the same time. It's a complete exercise. The first time I did this routine, it seemed too simple. But by the 3rd day, I realized something. It no longer cost me so much to start the day. My mind felt lighter. I felt more present, more lucid, even more optimistic. And most importantly, I didn't feel dragged by the outside world. I felt that the day began inside me. You don't need to do a 1-hour routine. You don't need to wake up at 5 in the morning. You only need 10 minutes of intention. And if you can, do it in silence or with soft music, but without screens, without news, without interruptions. Because if you sow peace, clarity, and attention in the first minutes of the day, your brain will remember, and it will give it back to you multiplied throughout the rest of the day. During a conversation, I asked Dr. Aranda something that intrigued me. What do you eat to keep your mind so awake? He smiled, as if I had asked him a question he'd been waiting for his whole life. And he answered with a sentence I haven't been able to forget. Your brain is what you eat, and also what you don't eat. Because although we've talked about movement, attention, and senses, we can't ignore what feeds that silent organ we carry inside our skull. The brain represents only 2% of our body weight, but it consumes almost 20% of the energy we use each day. And to function well, it needs specific nutrients, not just anything, not just any food. The doctor shared his eating routine with me, simple, but very well thought out. The foundation is 3 elements: choline, omega-3, and antioxidants. Choline is fundamental for memory. It's a nutrient that helps produce acetylcholine, a key neurotransmitter in learning. Where is it found? In eggs, especially in the yolk. That's why the doctor eats an egg every morning, sometimes boiled, sometimes scrambled, but always present. Omega-3s, for their part, are fatty acids that protect neurons. They help maintain the fluidity of cell membranes and reduce inflammation in the brain. Where are they found? In fatty fish like salmon or sardines, but also in walnuts, chia seeds, and flaxseed oil. The doctor eats a handful of walnuts every afternoon, and he dresses his salads with extra virgin olive oil, which also provides good fats. And then there are antioxidants. These compounds protect the brain from cellular aging and the damage caused by oxidative stress, something that intensifies with the years. Where are they? In berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, in green tea, in turmeric, in pure cacao. The doctor drinks green tea in the morning and adds turmeric to his soups, sometimes combined with black pepper to enhance its effect. Here's a small list of foods he considers brain activators. Eggs, rich in choline. Nuts and seeds, a source of omega-3 and vitamin E. Extra virgin olive oil. Berries. Turmeric with pepper. Leafy green vegetables. Fatty fish. Dark chocolate without sugar. But as important as what you eat is what you avoid. Because there are foods that literally turn the mind off. They don't do it from one day to the next, but over time, they impair memory, reduce concentration, and favor cognitive decline. Among them are refined sugar. It causes brain inflammation and disrupts energy levels. White flours. They raise glucose quickly, but leave the brain without stable energy. Excess alcohol. It interferes with communication between neurons. processed oils and fried foods, full of trans fats that affect memory. Energy or sugary drinks, a trap disguised as energy. The doctor was clear. This isn't about going on a diet. It's about choosing how you want your mind to function each day. And since I started following his advice, not only do I feel more alert, I also feel lighter, more stable, as if the mental fog that sometimes appeared after eating had simply disappeared. Because feeding the brain isn't a luxury, it's a form of respect. And respect, in old age, is also felt from within. There's something many people don't know, but that Dr. Aranda repeats in all his lectures. Routine isn't just boring. Routine kills the mind, and he isn't talking about having habits. Habits can be useful. The danger is when we do the same thing every day, the same way, without thinking. That turns the brain off. Why? Because the brain needs new stimuli to stay young. When everything becomes predictable, automatic, and repetitive, the brain no longer needs to create new connections. It limits itself to recycling the old ones, and over time, those connections begin to weaken. Scientists call this a lack of brain plasticity. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change, adapt, learn, and it doesn't disappear with age. It remains alive. But it needs one thing to be activated: novelty. Small changes, unexpected challenges, different stimuli. The doctor explained it with a simple metaphor. Your mind is like a path in the forest. If you walk the same trail every day, that path becomes easy, but everything outside it grows over with weeds. You lose access to other corners, and that's exactly what happens in old age. We do everything the same, out of habit. We eat in the same place, sit in the same chair, watch the same programs, walk down the same street, read the same things, and without realizing it, we close doors inside ourselves. The solution? Change. But you don't need to make big transformations. It's enough to do the everyday differently. Here are some simple ideas the doctor recommends to awaken neuroplasticity. Brush your teeth with your other hand. At first it's hard, but that discomfort is exactly what turns new neurons on. Change where you eat breakfast. If you always sit facing the window, sit facing the wall. If you eat alone, invite someone. If you eat the same foods, change the order. Take a different route for your walk, even if it takes a little longer, even if you get lost. Forcing yourself to observe something new is a gift for your mind. Talk to someone different. A neighbor, a grandchild, someone you don't usually talk to. New ideas activate creativity. Write with your other hand. It doesn't matter if it's illegible. What matters is that you're forcing your brain to coordinate differently. Change the order of your tasks. If you always do things in a fixed sequence, reverse the order one day. Do it on purpose. They may seem like trivial details, but they aren't. Because each small change tells the brain, hey, you're still alive. You can still learn. And that generates dopamine, the hormone of interest, pleasure, and learning. That's why many people who break routine feel more energy, more motivation, more desire to do new things. I'll tell you something personal. For years, I ate breakfast every day in the same chair, staring at the same spot in the kitchen. After talking with the doctor, I started moving my cup, changing places, trying new foods, and something changed. It wasn't just breakfast, it was the feeling of waking up to the world again, of opening inner windows I hadn't looked through in years. If you want to keep your mind awake, make novelty a habit. Change one thing a day, just one, and you'll see how, little by little, you change too. Dr. Aranda, with all his clinical and scientific experience, once said in a low voice, as if sharing a secret very few were ready to understand, "People who meditate every day age differently. Their brain withstands the passage of time better." At first I thought he was exaggerating. How could something as simple as sitting in silence have such a profound impact on the mind? But then he explained what science has already demonstrated. Daily meditation reduces deterioration in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that regulates judgment, concentration, self-control, and decision-making. It also lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, which, when it stays high for years, literally shrinks the brain. It isn't a fad. It isn't an esoteric practice. It's a silent mental workout, but tremendously powerful. Magnetic resonance images have shown that older adults who practice meditation regularly show less brain atrophy than those who don't. They have more gray matter, more plasticity, more calm. And best of all, you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to adopt strange postures or recite unusual words. You only need something very simple, that we've almost forgotten: to stop and breathe. The doctor recommends starting with 3 minutes a day. Yes, just 3. 3 minutes sitting in a comfortable chair with your feet on the floor and your eyes closed. No music, no forced thoughts, just paying attention to the air going in through your nose and out through your mouth. And when your mind gets distracted, because it will, nothing happens. You return gently to the breath, again and again. You're not failing, you're training, and that's what transforms your brain. I'll tell you how my first attempt went. I was 79 years old. Never in my life had I meditated. I was always the kind of person who thought that was for others. But that day, after talking with the doctor, I sat in silence. I closed my eyes, and I breathed. The first minute was uncomfortable. My head jumped from thought to thought. I thought about what I had to do, what I had forgotten, the laundry to fold. But I kept breathing. The second minute began to feel different. Less noise, more air, more space. And in the third minute, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. A pause. A moment without hurry, without the need to do, just to be. I opened my eyes and felt lighter, as if someone had swept inside. And since then, those 3 minutes have become a ritual. My way of reminding my brain that I'm still here, present, awake, alive. So if you think it's too late to meditate, I'll tell you the opposite. The more years you have, the more you need silence. The more you've lived, the more you deserve inner space. Start with 3 minutes. Just 3. Do it upon waking or before bed. Do it for you. Do it for your mind. Because there's no pill in the world that gives the brain what stillness gives it. And sometimes, the most powerful act is simply to stop and breathe. I'm going to tell you something I did that changed my life. It wasn't a medicine. It wasn't a trip. It was an experiment of 30 days. That's all. After talking so many times with Dr. Aranda, listening to his advice, and reading about neuroscience and longevity, I made myself a promise. I'm going to apply all these pillars for a month, no excuses, and I'm going to see what happens. And I did it. Exactly 30 days. Every morning I got up without looking at my phone. I washed my face with cold water, stretched my arms, read a paragraph out loud, and breathed. I walked paying attention to my steps, counting in reverse, changing routes. I watched what I ate. More eggs, less sugar. More berries, less white bread. And every day I did at least one thing differently. I changed the order, the chair, the routine. I gave myself the gift of learning something new. And every afternoon, 3 minutes of silence. Just breathing. I won't lie to you. At first I felt clumsy. I forgot things. I got distracted. Sometimes I didn't feel like it. But something inside me said, keep going. This is worth it. And after 1 week, I began to notice the first changes. My mind was clearer. I no longer had that feeling of morning fog. It was easier to concentrate. Even the way I spoke changed. Fewer pauses, more ideas. I started remembering names, dates, details. I felt faster at making decisions, lighter inside. The most striking thing wasn't what I noticed. It was what others said. One afternoon, while we were having coffee, my granddaughter looked at me and blurted out without warning, "Grandpa, you're more awake than ever." And her comment made me smile. Because she was right. I was more awake, not just in mind, also in soul. And then I understood something very important. We don't need to resign ourselves to decline. We don't have to accept that aging means shutting down. We can live many years and live them with the mind switched on. But it requires one thing: commitment. Because it isn't about trying for a week and giving up. It isn't about expecting miracle results overnight. It's about choosing yourself, taking care of yourself, investing in yourself again, not with money, with attention. If you're listening to me and you feel that your mind has become slow, that you forget things, that it's hard to concentrate or find the words, give it a try. You don't have to do it perfectly. Just committed. 30 days. A month to wake yourself up from within. A month to remind your brain that it still has a lot to give. And if you do it, write it down. Keep a record. Look back each week and ask yourself, how do I feel today compared to a week ago? That question can open your eyes. After everything we've talked about, after listening to Dr. Aranda, going through the pillars, understanding how your brain works and how you can activate it, I want to leave you with a clear idea. You don't need pills, you need habits, and your brain is waiting for them. It doesn't matter how many years you have. It doesn't matter if you feel slow, clumsy, tired, or disconnected. Your mind can still renew itself. It can still surprise you. Do you remember the 3 pillars? Movement with attention. Not walking for the sake of walking, but walking while thinking, breathing, counting, coordinating. Move the body and wake up the mind. Focus. Do one thing at a time. Read with intention. Listen with your eyes. Train concentration as if it were a muscle. Living senses. Smell, feel, touch, cook, paint. Give the brain the richness that only the real world can offer. 3 pillars, 3 paths, and you only need to take one step. So I want to leave you with a very simple question. What habit are you going to try tomorrow morning? Just one. Not all of them. One that makes you feel alive, curious, awake. Maybe reading out loud. Maybe walking down a new path. Maybe closing your eyes while you eat breakfast and noticing the flavor. Do it and tell me about it. I want to know whom I'm helping. I want to feel that this reached where it needed to go. So leave me a comment. How old are you? And where are you watching me from? I'll love to greet you and find out from which corner of the world you're waking up your mind. And if you felt that this video touched you, share it. Because maybe there's someone very close to you who needs to hear these words right now. Maybe your sister, your best friend, someone you think no longer has energy, but only lacks direction. Share this video. Give them that nudge. Because an active mind doesn't just light up for one person, it also illuminates others. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving yourself this time. And remember, every day you exercise your mind is a day won against forgetting. See you very soon.